Greetings MechWarriors, this is Blackhawk SC. Today we're going to do a viewer request, and this request came in about 4 months ago, so I haven't forgot about it. A viewer wanted to see a video about the Zeus ZEU-6S, or the ZEU-6S I'd like to say, although it doesn't really deserve that name in the game. I haven't done a lot of viewer requests, primarily because not that many requests come in the first place, or at least I don't see them in the comments. So do send in your comments about what you'd like to see talked about, and if it's an interesting chassis or build, it might make it into the channel. Anyways, this isn't going to be a guide or anything, more of a commentary and review of the chassis. I personally have a minor affinity for the Zeus, even though it's not a very good chassis, because I remember using it in Mech Commander 2. Although in that game, I think the Zeus was really closer to a Zeus-X and not the original Zeuses that we have in MWO. I thought the shoulder fins looked really cool, and although it was a reasonable decision due to timeline issues, I was still a little bit disappointed that this design didn't make it into this game. However, I think the artists did a pretty good job with the Zeus. It kept the round shoulders and the missile fist that's iconic of the Zeuses. The mech also has kind of a slight backwards lean to it that doesn't appear on a lot of other mechs, probably because it visually balances the huge arms that stick out in front. You can also see the default pattern reveals a set of lightning bolts, which gives it additional flavor. I want to talk a little bit about the history of the Zeus in this game. When it first arrived in the Resistance 1 pack, it didn't really add that much new to the game. For 80 tonners, we already had the Awesomes for energy and missiles, and the Victor for speed, ballistics, and brawling. So in the beginning, the Zeus didn't really add that much to gameplay. However, there was a unique aspect of the Zeus, which didn't really get exploited by the player base until Quirks came along, which is that it was undersized for an 80 tonner. After most IS mechs got structure buffs in the first Quirk pass, the Zeus was known as a fairly tough and speedy mech because its size made it more difficult to hit. At that point, the ZEU-9S, which is the energy build, also benefited from the laser vomit meta, which made it a mid-high tier mech. That's as far as any Zeus variant got. More recently, PGI did his resize pass, which made the Zeus much larger. This basically brought them back down to mediocrity once again. Throughout all of this, the 6S has never really made it past that mid-level, so it has always been a rarer sight in the game. The biggest reason is because of his hardpoints, which are low and wide. The single missile hardpoint on the right arm is basically useless, unless you really don't care about making a good build. If it's not clear why, a quick and dirty explanation is that the missile weapons have very different firing characteristics from ballistics and energy weapons, such that they often can't easily be used together. For example, LRMs require locks and continuous staring at your target until the missiles hit, whereas with energy and ballistics, you can turn and find cover as soon as you fire. So typically it's not worth the tonnage and extra gameplay decisions that you have to make just to use one missile weapon. Therefore, if we ignore that right side, we're going to concentrate on the left side oriented builds. Plus, this allows us to strip the armor off the right arm for additional tonnage. Let's actually take a look at the quirks on the 6S. So as you can see, it's still kind of tanky. This makes taking an XL engine a little bit more viable despite its increased size. And if we use ballistics, the extra weight savings is often worth it. I'm going to go with an XL340, but standard engines are also okay because you get a dead side. Unfortunately, with its 4 energy hardpoints, we get no energy quirks. But the ballistic quirks are not too bad. Velocity and cooldown are the two best ballistic quirks, and 25 and 15% is pretty generous. Too bad you can only take 2 ballistics and you're limited to 2 AC5s, a Gauss, or an AC10 with the limited slots on the left arm. For me, I'm going to go with the AC5s because that seems to use the 2 ballistic quirks the best. Definitely that's not your only reasonable choice, but I like the accuracy and sped up AC5 bullet and the DPS that they provide over other choices. You can also try the UX5 and AC5 combo, but that does mean either sacrificing a weapon module, since you're going to use an energy weapon of some sort. And if you take the almost mandatory advanced seismic and radar deprivation modules, you have 2 weapon module slots left. We're going to use 5 tons of ammo for the AC5, since the cooldown quirk means we're expending ammo fairly quickly, although I'd say 4 tons will last you through the majority of matches. Now for the energy weapons. Normally I'd say dual PPC since they sync up well with AC5s. However, in this case, we're going to recommend large lasers instead, mostly because there are enough energy hardpoints for 3 large lasers, and that gives you 27 points of damage compared with 20 for dual PPCs. Recall that PPC's ghost heat starts at 3, so we want to avoid that. Without any heat gen quirks, the dual PPCs are also going to be pretty hot for our limited number of heat sinks. Now, after we fill up the rest of the slots with heat sinks, this is what the build looks like. The 16 heat sinks that we have on here are just about sufficient to keep up with the 3 large lasers if you fire them carefully. But if you simply continuously fire them, you will still overheat. So what I like to do is to use all 3 lasers and the ACs for 2 shots. Then, if I'm still shooting at the target, I just use 1 laser plus the ACs. If you decide to go with a standard engine, this is what the build may look like. I'd say try both and see which one fits better with how you play. In either case, the playstyle is somewhere in between full DPS and high alpha pokes. The dual AC5s is not enough to out DPS true Dakameks like the Molar or even a dual Ultra AC5 Marauder. The alpha isn't terrible, but it's not great either at only 37 points. Not only that, you have to expose a lot of your mech to get the alpha out due to the low mounted weapons, so playing the poke game isn't going to favor you most of the time. So generally, I'd stick with providing fire support to the mechs that are already engaged. If you feel you can out DPS an energy boat in a 1v1 for example, you can go ahead and do that. With an XL engine, you have some level of speed to reposition and gain favorable angles. So pay attention to your surroundings, see where your team is trading fire with the enemy, and move into support. Let's actually get into a match and see what it can do.
Reactor online.
So in this match we're on Forest Colony.
Weapons online.
Just my small comment on Forest Colony is that I think it's a pretty balanced map. It's one of the newer maps that PGI has designed, and for the newer maps they've designed is such that there's both short and long range positions where you can engage from long to short range. So I like Forest Colony, and it's also balanced that neither side has a distinct advantage, I believe. So, but it doesn't get voted on very often, probably because of the visibility issues. And I think to get around that, you can use different heat modes, heat vision and night vision, different vision modes. You can use, your radar and like blips on the radar. You don't actually have to see the enemy to know where they're coming from. But some players, I think, have some problems with that, so they don't vote for Forest Colony. But I like it. So this Battlemaster here is definitely carrying an XL engine. He's moving even faster than I am. And I'm carrying an XL 340. So it must be like XL 360 or something like that to be faster. So the initial thought here was to go to the right side, but my team started gravitated towards that left side, so that's why I eventually turned around and went left. Which is actually the better side for me. As you see, everything is left-sided, left-oriented for me. So here, initially, we're thinking they're coming from H8, which is normally where they come from. We do get a blip at H8. But then we get a blip over at the gap at G8. Although we couldn't see the mech, we got the blip, we got the red triangle. So we took a shot there just in case we were able to hit it, and we did actually hit.
New target acquired.
Just same thing here. We actually didn't see the mech, but we fired at that red square and actually made contact. So what apparently is happening is their team split with maybe 2 or 3 mechs coming out of G8, and unfortunately what happened to those flankers is they stared straight into the majority of our team, and that Kodiak, which is maybe one of the better mechs on their team, died pretty quickly. And so we're keeping an eye out on the flank, but here we kind of make a mistake, and we walked forward a little bit too far into the firing lines of 3 enemy mechs over there. That could have been a huge mistake, but apparently they were distracted by something, so I didn't suffer all that much. as you see, like I was kind of heating up there, so I fired the one. As I mentioned, you fire your one laser at that time, in addition to the AC5s to sustain DPS. So keep that third weapon group, or whatever weapon group that you use, as one large laser so you don't overheat. And you can kind of see what's happening right now. Like we have a bunch of our team is coming from going to I-8 and flanking around behind them. Where while we have a couple of assaults, a Night Gear, and Hellbringer, and myself here kind of holding the front, so we're kind of pincering them in around that H8 area. And meanwhile, I'm here kind of covering the flank over at the G8. There's a couple of mechs still poking out at G8. So you can see I'm just trying to provide support. I'm not actually taking the brunt of all the fire. I'm just kind of making sure people are not poking, making sure, you know, adding some support fire over towards H8, making sure that Shadowhawk, for example, doesn't get shots on our team. You know, just mainly playing like a auxiliary role, not really taking any frontline action. And so now that our flankers took care of the guys at H8, we can go over to finish off the guys at G8. There was also maybe a little bit of an overpoke against the Direwolf, if you remember seeing. I lost my right arm for that, but that's what it was for. Was, you know, mistakes happen, and I make plenty of mistakes, and so I try to point them out when I make these videos.
New target acquired.
So I just need to clean up the rest of the enemy team here.
New target acquired.
And, you know, despite
Target destroyed.
despite what you'll see in the end result, the damage and the kill count, whatever, you can kind of see like I wasn't the main player. You know, the Zeus-6S isn't really the main player in this match. This match was really won by the flankers and the frontline assault mechs that was holding them in place. So I was just playing like an auxiliary role, and that's how you should play the Zeus. Okay guys, this is the Zeus-6S with the dual AC5 large laser build. As I said earlier, there are multiple builds that can be at least somewhat effective on this chassis, so go ahead and experiment. I sometimes still take this out because of the challenge of getting it to work can be fun. I hope you enjoyed this mech showcase, and please subscribe and comment if you'd like to see other videos like this. See you next time!